I never thought my own sister would betray me like this. When Jessica and her husband Alex lost their home, I welcomed them with open arms into the house I built specifically for my wheelchair-bound daughter Sophie. Then one night they cornered me in the kitchen, with a request that made my blood run cold. They wanted Sophie to give up her specially modified room. If only I had known then what their true intentions were. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button. My name is Mitchell, and at 35 years old, I never expected to be a single father. 5 years ago, my wife Lisa died in a car accident that also left our daughter Sophie paralyzed from the waist down. The doctors said she would never walk again, but that did not mean she could not have a full independent life. As a structural engineer, I immediately began planning modifications to our home to accommodate her wheelchair and special needs. My work is demanding, but I arranged a flexible schedule that allows me to be there for Sophie. The construction company I work for understands my situation and lets me work from home 2 days a week. The rest of the time, I am on construction sites throughout the city checking structural integrity and ensuring buildings meet safety codes. The job pays well enough that we live comfortably, and I was able to invest a significant amount into modifying our 3-bedroom ranch-style house. Sophie is 14 now, a brilliant young girl who loves music more than anything else in the world. She plays piano beautifully, and her room is her sanctuary. When I redesigned the house, I made sure her bedroom was perfect for her needs. It has wide doorways for her wheelchair, a specially designed bathroom with grab bars and a roll-in shower, a desk at the perfect height for her chair, and a sophisticated sound system so she can practice and record her music. The large windows face our backyard garden, letting in plenty of natural light that Sophie says helps her feel less confined. The bond between Sophie and me grew even stronger after we lost Lisa. We developed routines and systems to manage everyday challenges together. I wake up early to help her get ready for school, and we have dinner together every night, where she tells me about her day, her friends, and her latest musical compositions. Weekends are sacred to us. We often visit the Adaptive Recreation Center where Sophie takes swimming lessons, or we go to the local music store to check out new equipment. My sister Jessica is 3 years younger than me, 32, with a personality that could not be more different from mine. Where I am careful and plan ahead, Jessica has always lived in the moment. Throughout our lives, I have bailed her out of one crisis after another. When she dropped out of college, I helped her find a job. When her car broke down, I paid for the repairs. I have always felt responsible for her well-being, especially after our parents passed away 7 years ago. Jessica married Alex 4 years ago. He is 34 and worked as a mid-level manager at a tech company. From the beginning, I had mixed feelings about him. He complained constantly about his job, his co-workers, and his boss, but never seemed motivated to make any changes. Their marriage always seemed tense, with Alex frequently expressing dissatisfaction about everything from their apartment to Jessica not earning enough at her part-time job at a local boutique. Despite my reservations about Alex, I tried to maintain a good relationship with them. We would have them over for dinner once a month, and Sophie enjoyed spending time with her aunt. Jessica was always kind to Sophie, bringing her small gifts and showing interest in her music. Alex, on the other hand, always seemed uncomfortable around her wheelchair, avoiding direct interaction and making excuses to leave the room when Sophie talked about her adaptive sports or musical achievements. The call came on a rainy Tuesday evening in October. I had just finished helping Sophie with her homework when my phone rang. Jessica was crying so hard I could barely understand her. Between sobs, she explained that Alex had been laid off 3 months ago during company-wide cutbacks. They had been surviving on savings and credit cards, but now they could not make rent. The landlord had given them notice to vacate by the end of the week. My first instinct was to offer financial help, but Jessica quickly explained that they needed more than money. They had nowhere to go, and their credit was too damaged to qualify for a new apartment. Through tears, she asked if they could stay with us, just for a few weeks, until Alex found a new job, and they could get back on their feet. I hesitated, thinking about how this would affect Sophie and our carefully structured routines. But the thought of my sister homeless overwhelmed any concerns. Family helps family. That is what our parents always taught us. I told Jessica they could stay in our guest room, but it was small and currently used for storage. They could also use the pull-out couch in the living room until we cleared the guest room. Jessica was overwhelmingly grateful, promising they would be respectful of our space and helpful around the house. Alex got on the phone, briefly thanking me, in a subdued voice that did not quite match the relief I expected. Looking back, I should have paid more attention to that discrepancy, but at the time I was focused on the logistics of adding 2 adults to our carefully balanced household. 2 days later, Jessica and Alex arrived with far more possessions than I expected for a temporary stay. They had 3 large suitcases, boxes of kitchen items, and even some furniture they insisted they could not leave in storage. Our living room quickly transformed from a comfortable family space into a crowded storage unit with a pull-out bed in the middle. The first few days were awkward, but manageable. Jessica helped with cooking and cleaning, seeming genuinely grateful for our hospitality. She spent time with Sophie, listening to her play piano and helping her with English homework. Alex, however, was rarely home, claiming he had numerous job interviews lined up. He would leave early in the morning and return late in the evening, offering vague responses when I asked how his search was going. Sophie was adjusting to the new arrangement with remarkable resilience. She mentioned that navigating her wheelchair through the more crowded house was challenging, but she understood the importance of helping family in need. What she did not mention until later was that she had caught Alex looking into her room multiple times when he thought no one was watching. As the first week turned into the second, small irritations began to grow. I noticed Alex wandering around the house when Sophie and I were gone, opening closets and examining our possessions with unusual interest. Jessica began complaining about the limited storage space for their things and hinted that the guest room was too small for all their belongings. When I suggested putting some items in paid storage, they both quickly dismissed the idea as an unnecessary expense. The morning routine became a particular point of tension. Getting Sophie ready for school involves transferring her from bed to wheelchair, helping her in the bathroom, and then navigating down the hallway. The noise apparently disturbed Alex, who complained about being woken up too early. Jessica suggested we adjust our schedule to accommodate their sleep needs, seemingly forgetting that Sophie had to be at school by a certain time. The real problems began in the 3rd week. Despite my explicit request not to, Jessica and Alex continued bringing more of their possessions into the house, claiming they had nowhere else to store them. Our garage became so packed with their boxes that I could barely find space for Sophie's wheelchair-accessible van. The utility bills increased dramatically, yet they made no offer to contribute financially to the household expenses. Arguments about food became common. They ate the special dietary items I purchased for Sophie without replacing them. When I brought this up, Alex suggested that since they were guests, providing food was part of my hospitality obligation. Jessica seemed uncomfortable with his statement, but did not contradict him. One evening I returned from work to find Alex sitting at Sophie's piano, roughly pressing the keys. When I asked him to stop reminding him that the instrument was expensive and precious to Sophie, he muttered something about everything in the house being off-limits to them. The comment struck me as odd for someone supposedly staying temporarily. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening about a month after they had moved in. I was preparing dinner while Sophie was at her adaptive swimming class. Jessica and Alex entered the kitchen with unusually serious expressions. Jessica spoke first, saying they needed to discuss an important matter with me. Alex stood with his arms crossed, his posture confrontational. Jessica explained that while they appreciated my hospitality, the living room arrangement was becoming untenable. They needed more space and privacy. Then came the request that left me speechless. They wanted Sophie to move out of her room so they could use it. For several seconds, I could not even respond. When I finally found my voice, I asked if they were serious. They were suggesting my disabled daughter give up her specially modified room with its accessible bathroom and carefully arranged furniture for what? So they could have more space during their temporary stay. Alex quickly jumped in with, prepared arguments. Sophie's room was the largest bedroom in the house, he pointed out. She did not need that much space. The small guest room would be adequate for her needs, and we could move some of her things in there. When I mentioned the bathroom accessibility, he shrugged and said she could use the main bathroom, ignoring the fact that it was not equipped with the modifications she required. Jessica at least had the decency to look uncomfortable, but she supported her husband, adding that Sophie was young and adaptable. She suggested it would only be for a little while until they found their own place. The way she avoided eye contact told me she knew how unreasonable the request was. I firmly refused. Sophie's room was designed specifically for her needs, and I would not disrupt her life and independence to accommodate their desire for more space. This was supposed to be a temporary arrangement anyway, I reminded them. Perhaps it was time for them to intensify their search for their own place. Alex's expression darkened. He accused me of being selfish and not understanding the difficulties they were facing. Jessica added that families should support each other in hard times, seemingly oblivious to the fact that I was already supporting them considerably. The conversation ended with tension hanging thick in the air, and I had a sinking feeling that this issue was far from resolved. In the days that followed, Jessica and Alex's behavior became increasingly problematic. They began creating subtle obstacles for Sophie around the house. Shoes left in the pathway of her wheelchair. The bathroom counter, cluttered with their toiletries, making it difficult for her to reach the sink. Complaints about the sound of her wheelchair or her adaptive equipment became more frequent. Alex started making pointed comments about Sophie having special privileges and taking up too much space in the house. He would speak just loud enough for her to hear, causing my daughter noticeable distress. When I confronted him, he denied any ill intent, claiming I was being oversensitive. One afternoon I came home early from work and found evidence that they had been in Sophie's room while we were out. Items were slightly moved, drawers not closed completely. When I questioned them, Jessica claimed they were just looking for a spare blanket, but her nervous demeanor suggested otherwise. The situation worsened when I overheard a phone conversation Alex was having in the backyard. I had stepped out to check the grill for our weekend barbecue when I heard him say, "If we cannot get the room the normal way, we will have to go with Plan B. I will talk to you later about the details." The conversation sent chills down my spine, though I was not yet sure what it meant. The next Tuesday, I had a meeting canceled and decided to come home early. I parked a block away and walked to clear my head, still troubled by the tension in the house. As I approached, I noticed Jessica's car in the driveway, though she had told me she would be working all day at the boutique. I entered quietly through the side door and heard voices coming from Sophie's room. Silently moving down the hallway, I witnessed a scene that made my stomach drop. Alex was carefully measuring the dimensions of Sophie's room, writing numbers in a small notebook. Jessica was taking photographs of the space with her phone, talking to someone. "It is perfect for the studio, exactly what we need," she was saying. "The soundproofing is already partially done because of her music, and the electrical setup can handle all the equipment. I think we can make this work." I stepped into the doorway, clearing my throat loudly. Jessica nearly dropped her phone, and Alex straightened up so quickly he bumped his head on the windowsill. The guilt on their faces confirmed my worst suspicions. "What exactly is going on here?" I demanded. "Why are you measuring and photographing Sophie's room when you both should be at work?" They stumbled over their explanations. Jessica claimed they were just getting ideas for when they got their own place. Alex muttered something about helping me improve the room for Sophie. Their contradicting stories and nervous glances at each other told me they were lying. I asked them to leave the room, telling them we would discuss this when Sophie was not due home from school in an hour. As they filed past me, I noticed Alex clutching his notebook protectively. Once they were in the living room, I quickly checked Sophie's room to ensure nothing had been disturbed, then locked the door, a temporary measure that I knew would upset Sophie, but necessary under the circumstances. That evening, after helping Sophie with homework and making sure she was settled in her room with headphones on, I began my investigation. While Jessica and Alex were watching television, I checked the family computer they had been using. The search history revealed multiple queries about home recording studios, sound isolation techniques, and most disturbingly small business loans for music production startups. The next morning after Sophie left for school, I noticed Alex had left his jacket on the couch. My conscience battled briefly with my concern for Sophie's safety before I checked the pockets. Inside, I found a folded business loan application, with notes about using a pre-existing soundproofed room as the basis for a home recording studio. The address listed was my house. Further investigation of Alex's social media accounts, which he had carelessly left logged in on our shared computer, revealed announcements about an upcoming recording service he planned to launch. He had been telling potential clients he would soon have a professional studio space at what was unmistakably my address. The final piece of evidence came when Jessica left for work and forgot to lock their suitcases. Inside the largest one, carefully wrapped in clothing, I found expensive audio recording equipment, a microphone worth at least $2,000 high-end monitors, and digital mixers. These were not the possessions of a couple in financial distress. They were investments for a business venture. Alex was planning right under my roof, using my daughter room as his facility. That evening I confronted them with all the evidence I had gathered. Initially they tried to deny everything, but when faced with the loan application and the equipment I had photographed, their story fell apart. Jessica finally broke down and admitted the truth. Alex had not been laid off. He had quit his job 3 months earlier to pursue his dream of becoming a music producer. They had indeed run out of money, but it was because Alex had been investing in equipment rather than paying rent. They had planned to move in with me temporarily, but when they saw Sophie's specially modified room with its partial soundproofing and robust electrical system, Alex had seen an opportunity. Their plan was to convince me to let them take over that room, gradually establish their business, and essentially turn my home into their recording studio. The worst part was learning that they had specifically targeted Sophie's room from the beginning, knowing it was already partially set up for what they needed. When I asked how they could possibly think I would agree to displace my disabled daughter for their business venture, Alex showed his true colors. He scoffed, saying I was wasting the perfect studio space on a kid who just plays around with music. He suggested I was overindulging Sophie, and that she did not really need all those special modifications. Jessica, caught between loyalty to her husband and the obvious wrongness of their actions, tried to justify their behavior. She claimed they would have eventually included Sophie in the business, letting her record her own music. When I pointed out that they had been actively making life difficult for Sophie to pressure us, Jessica looked genuinely ashamed for the first time. The final revelation came when I mentioned talking to our neighbors about the situation. Jessica and Alex exchanged a panicked look, and I pressed them on it. Eventually they admitted they had been telling neighbors they would soon be taking over the house, implying I was planning to sell or rent it to them. They had even told some of Sophie's friends' parents that she might be moving to a special facility better suited to her needs. Most disturbing of all, I discovered that Alex had consulted with a lawyer about tenant rights, exploring whether they could claim some legal right to stay in my home after living there for a certain period. The depth of their betrayal and the calculated nature of their scheme left me speechless. When I asked Jessica how she could do this to her own brother and niece, she broke down completely. Through tears, she admitted that Alex had convinced her this was their only chance at financial independence. He had painted me as someone who could afford to help them, and who owed it to family to do so. She had known it was wrong, but had gone along with it out of a combination of financial desperation and manipulation from Alex. The revelation of their true intentions changed everything. What I had seen as helping family in need was actually being exploited by people willing to displace a disabled child for their own gain. The trust I had extended had been thoroughly betrayed, and I knew there was only one possible response. I gave Jessica and Alex 48 hours to pack their things and leave my home. When they protested, claiming they had nowhere to go, I remained firm. I explained that their deliberate deception and willingness to harm Sophie's comfort and security had destroyed any obligation I felt toward them. To ensure there would be no further issues, I called my attorney that same evening. He confirmed that as they had no lease or rental agreement and had contributed nothing financially to the household, they had no legal standing to remain in my home against my wishes. He drafted a formal notice for me to give them, making the situation official. The next day, while they were both out supposedly looking for alternative accommodation, I had the locks changed on all exterior doors. I also installed a simple security camera system covering the entrances to the house. These measures might have seemed extreme, but I was no longer willing to take chances with Sophie's safety and our home security. A close friend from work, David, agreed to stay with us for a few days during the transition. His presence provided both practical security and emotional support for Sophie and me during a difficult time. When Jessica and Alex returned to find the locks changed, their reaction was predictably angry. Alex threatened legal action, claiming tenant rights and unlawful eviction. I calmly handed him the letter from my attorney and reminded him of the evidence I had regarding their deceptive plans. The realization that I had documented everything and consulted a lawyer seemed to deflate his bravado. Jessica tried a different approach, appealing to our family bond and my compassion. She cried and reminded me of all the times we had supported each other growing up. But the trust between us was shattered. I told her I would allow them to collect their belongings with me present, but my decision about them leaving was final. In a last desperate move, they attempted to turn family and friends against me. Alex posted misleading information on social media claiming I had suddenly evicted them out of selfishness. Jessica called our extended family with a distorted version of events. Fortunately, our relatives knew me well enough to question their story, and when I explained the situation with evidence, support shifted firmly in our favor. On the morning of their departure, I supervised as they loaded their numerous possessions into a rented truck. Alex remained hostile and threatening to the end, muttering about how I would regret this decision. Jessica vacillated between angry defiance and tearful regret, unable to fully commit to either position. As they drove away, I felt an overwhelming mix of relief, sadness, and lingering anger at how family could betray family so completely. The weeks that followed were focused on helping Sophie process what had happened. Though I had tried to shield her from the worst of the conflict, she was perceptive enough to understand the basics of the situation. She expressed hurt that her aunt and uncle had wanted to take her room and had seen her needs as an inconvenience. We had several deep conversations about family trust and the importance of surrounding ourselves with people who truly care about our well-being. We worked together to reclaim our space, rearranging furniture, and adding some new decorative elements to make the house feel fresh and fully ours again. Sophie suggested painting her room a new color, symbolic of putting the negative experience behind us. We chose a peaceful blue that complemented her piano and the natural light from her windows. Throughout this difficult period, I learned valuable lessons about setting boundaries even with family. I realized that my desire to help Jessica had often enabled her poor decisions rather than encouraging her growth and independence. My generosity had been exploited because I had not established clear expectations and limitations. 6 months after Jessica and Alex left, I heard through a mutual friend that they had managed to open a small recording studio in a neighboring city. The venture had failed within 3 months due to poor planning and Alex's unrealistic expectations. Shortly afterward, Jessica had filed for divorce, finally recognizing the negative influence Alex had on her life and decisions. About 8 months after the incident, Jessica called me. Her voice was hesitant and genuinely remorseful as she apologized for her role in what had happened. She explained that after separating from Alex, she had gained perspective on how manipulated she had been, but also acknowledged her own responsibility in going along with his schemes. She did not ask to rebuild our relationship immediately, but simply wanted me to know she recognized the harm she had caused. That call began a very slow, cautious reconciliation process. We started with occasional text messages, then coffee meetings in neutral public locations. I was clear that while forgiveness might be possible, the trust would need to be rebuilt gradually, and certain boundaries would remain firm. Sophie was initially reluctant to see her aunt again, but eventually agreed to brief, supervised visits. The experience transformed my approach to helping others. I became more discerning about offers of assistance, ensuring they truly served the recipient, rather than enabling dependency. I started a support group for single parents of children with disabilities, creating a community where we could share resources and experiences without judgment. Sophie emerged from the experience with new strength and clarity. She became more assertive about her needs and boundaries, both at home and at school. Her music took on new emotional depth, and she began composing pieces that expressed the complexity of trust, betrayal, and resilience. At 15, she performed one of these compositions at a school concert, receiving a standing ovation that brought tears to my eyes. The most important lesson I learned through this ordeal was that protecting your child must always take priority over other family obligations. No matter how strong the family ties, no one has the right to compromise your child's safety, security, or well-being. Setting firm boundaries is not selfish. It is essential. Looking back now, I see that the experience painful, as it was made Sophie and me stronger as individuals and as a father-daughter team. We learned to trust our instincts, verify good intentions, and stand firm in protecting our home and each other. Most importantly, we learned that true family is defined not by blood relations, but by actions that demonstrate love, respect, and support. I wonder if any of you have faced similar situations with family members taking advantage of your generosity. How did you handle it? Please share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. Your support means the world to me and helps me continue sharing these personal stories. Thank you for listening, and remember to always trust your instincts when it comes to protecting the ones you love.